it's just like the House. The House, that's why we divide that up. It's just like our 38 senators, it's divided up, and everybody grabs property in order to get to that number. It's about 800,000 per congressional district. David?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. Why, do you know why Dan backed out?
He originally ran and promised he would only run 3 terms.
Mm-hmm. One.
Well, he said 6 years. He was going to run 6 years. And then in March of 2015, if I'm saying that right, he said he was going to run for the 4th term. And then in September of last year, he announced he wasn't running. So why, that would have to be asked by him.
Okay, the other question is, which one of these 3 candidates are you going to support?
After the filing deadline, which is April 19th, I'm going to analyze the candidates that are there, and I'm going to endorse one of the candidates.
Are you going to be able to really help them?
I hope so.
You will be able to really.
I hope so. I think it's honorable to wait till the filing deadline for anybody to endorse anybody.
Yes.
I mean, you don't know if God Almighty is going to come down. Yeah. So I'm going to wait until the filing deadline. Sir?
You're talking about the first congressional, it would go to Washington, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now, I'm not sure, but one of the 3 candidates remaining in the Republican Party wants to have one currency for Canada, America, Central America, South America. Is that true?
One of our congressional candidates?
No, one of our presidential candidates.
Oh boy, I don't know that.
Mm.
'Cause that's the first time I heard that. Yeah, I haven't heard that.
I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's the first time I heard that. Yeah.
They worked on it, and we had 3 presidents that went to Canada and within their terms and discussed it. But nothing else.
Well, I think if that would ever come up to a serious discussion, we should bring in all of the European countries and talk about it with them. Because I don't think all of them are happy they have a solid currency. Yeah.
Which 3? Did he talk about Canada and U.S.?
Again, this is the first I heard of it.
It's all the North American continent. North America, Central America, South America.
Yeah.
American.
I wonder what currency it would be.
Central America was even on the same currency.
I've heard about the North American Union, which would be Canada, United States, and Mexico, and they'd have the Amero.
The Amero.
You know, it's interesting when you talk about, like, you know, when you look at NAFTA,
Wow.
everybody knows what NAFTA is. And, you know, everything sounds wonderful. And here's, we as Republicans get beat up for all sorts of things, but you know, NAFTA was signed by Clinton. And,
In a Republican House and Senate.
well, nevertheless, signed by
But
Clinton.
usually when the 2 of them get together, the American people get screwed.
That's true. But I like to draw NAFTA this way. You have the west coast of Michigan or the United States going down to Mexico, and then you have the east coast, Nova Scotia, and east coast of United States going down to Mexico, and it ends up looking like a funnel. It goes right to Mexico. It didn't do us any good at all. So.
Did Oreo cookies
Good to go?
wouldn't carry it.
In any case, thanks again for allowing me to speak. And of course, before Larry's format this June, which I encourage you all to invite your neighbors and friends to come, because it is important. It really is. You know, you need to know these candidates. You need to know what they stand for. You need to get a good feel of them. As a, I guess it has been here coming up, candidate forums and debates are our best way of introducing ourselves to people. You get a feel of what we are, you get to ask the questions. It's a good introduction to those people. And again, Northeast Michigan is in play this year. The Democrats are spending money. They are spending money. They believe they have the seat. And understand that prior to my 6-year term, this was a Democratic seat for 12 years. But 18 years before that, it was a Republican seat. And we lost it because we didn't pay attention. My goal has always been to make sure the seat stays Republican. nothing could be a better handoff for me than to hand it off to another Republican. And then that person work to hand it off to another Republican. And that's important, and we have to pay attention.
Why is it important?
Well, I sleep better at night knowing a Republican is in my legislative body.
But
Yeah.
people who don't identify with the party, because most people tell me they don't know who the Congress people are, and I'm trying to get them to know.
It's
So
funny.
if you want to say to someone who isn't identifying with the party, so well, why is it important for me to elect a
Well,
Republican?
okay, thank you for asking that question. Why is it important to me? First of all, I serve with a lot of very good quality Democrats. If you believe that the Democratic Party is a better party to you to be identified with, then it shouldn't matter. But when it comes down to the actual nuts and bolts of what I want, I identify with Republican candidates. There are Democratic candidates that can work with you on issues of some concern, but when it boils down to the nuts and bolts of it, I sleep better knowing that there's a Republican there. Now, some of you don't like my votes all the time, and that's good. We're not supposed to. If you identify with me 80% of the time, thank you. But that's,
I asked you a question.
well, I'm going to get to your question.
Okay.
When you look at the Democrat and the Republican Party and what we try to do as a unit, and understand that I vote against the unit a lot because I vote for my district. It's just like this bill that I just talked to you about, the box stores. That was a bill that was put together by the majority floor leader, Representative Eric Nesbitt, who's on the same leadership team as I am. He's a Republican. And I voted against them. And I campaigned against that bill. So there are things that you do that way. But when you look at me, I'm not speaking for you because you have to do whatever is more comfortable for you. But when I know that there's a Republican there, I know that my moral standards are always going to be upheld. I know that my constitutional rights are always going to be upheld. Whether you agree with every vote that that person takes is a different story. But when it comes down to what I truly believe in, I want a Republican there.
My
Because the
question was,
Democratic ain't gonna do it.
for anybody who's looking to vote, you want them to support a Republican, not just about you, but why the Republican Party, why a Republican candidate? These are questions we get all along. That's what
I think I
asked
just
that
said that.
question.
Whether you agree with that Republican candidate 100% of the time, which you should never do, I just mentioned, the basic of what I believe a Republican should be are the moral values in which I hold and what the Constitution gives us. And if that Republican isn't living up to that, then that's not the Republican for me. But I know the Democrats don't.
Exactly.
Did you say Democrats don't have a moral standard, they don't?
Not
they
mine.
don't follow, they don't
Not
follow
mine.
Constitution.
Especially not when they do
I think
that.
you have to be, I understand her question, I think,
Yeah.
and I don't think you're answering it.
Okay, well, tell me, go ahead.
I want, when someone says, why would I be a Democrat instead of being a Republican? You've got to be more specific. I can read in between the lines of what you're saying, but that's not gonna do it for me when I'm talking to a Democrat in the Dominican Republic that says Flint is 100% Snyder's fault. And I had that all the time. But I mean, why, and I think I would like to be able to say why I'm a Republican. And I refer people to the platforms of the two, and I say you need to read both platforms to determine what you should be. And when I read the Republican one, that's the one I want.
Well, I think we're saying the same thing.
Same thing,
We
yeah.
are, but when I have to get, I say I'm for business, I'm not for socialism. I'm not for taking 85% of my money and giving it to my lazy nephews
But
that are on
he's saying,
disability.
I don't think there's any disparity in what he's saying. He is crystal clear. This is what the Republican Party's value system is. That's the words he used. I
David,
believe, I'm not trying to
let me
put
say,
words in your
there
mouth.
are Democrats that are very good conservative business people. They really are. They are conservative
Warren
focused.
Buffett.
Well,
Bill
I'm saying
Gates.
he's, yeah, right. But there are good quality, I can identify and sit down with my colleagues down in Lansing that are quality, like-minded thinking business people. That's not what I said. To me, I'm gonna go back to the moral issue and the Constitution, which they often stray from.
So
Yes.
tell me about how immoral the Democratic,
Well, I'll give you a great example. We just did some bills, a package of bills Thursday on the House floor, in which the Democrats, the liberal Democrats, chastised us for an hour and a half to the point where my ears were bleeding. And what it was, what it boiled down to, this package of bills, was a woman that is, a woman unwed that is pregnant has now got protection that she can go to counseling and not be encouraged to have an abortion. The counselor cannot encourage this woman to have an abortion. We just passed a bill. We just passed a law that counselors cannot encourage women to have an abortion. That's the difference between a Democratic platform and a Republican platform. It passed on pure party lines, and it doesn't say that abortions are illegal, because we know they're constitutionally protected for whatever reason, but we just passed the bill that says, it's multifaceted, there was like 6 different bills, but it boils down to these women that are going to clinics for prenatal care cannot be counseled to have an abortion. Hello? Do you follow that?
yeah,
Well,
the
now,
Democrats want them
there's
to
a
be
difference.
counseled
There-
to have an abortion.
That's correct.
Yep.
So now I'm going back, and I think Frank got it. It's the moral issue that stands up with me. And there's a lot of times, if the Democrats and Republicans, we vote, 80% of the things we vote down there are bipartisan. But there are certain things that we don't. Yes, sir.
I was just gonna say to Dave in the room here, if Granholm was governor and they had the Flint water crisis, would she be at fault?
No.
No, she'd get a pass, she'd get a break.
Right.
The Democrats will get a break. And I think most of this is the NEA. They didn't get to recall Snyder back 3-4 years ago. Now it's a way of trying to oust him out of the seat and get their Democrat in office. I mean, if I'm talking to somebody who says that, you know, this is his fault, I said, what if Granholm were in there? Would she be at fault, or would you give her a break?
He's never done that.
If Granholm was governor, I wouldn't blame her for this water problem either. I really would. It's
No,
not the
neither would
governor's
I,
fault.
but they all do.
Right, you wanna blame anybody for this water crisis, again, go back to
Oh, yeah.
why
The
the
city
city
council.
council is there. They're all Democrats, and
That's
and
right.
4 of them were in prison in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that message was really good, because people need to know that, because you've noticed in the news, Michigan has been shamed. And even the Democratic presidential candidates,
Sure.
over and over again, blaming that the Flint water crisis is because they just wanted to save money. We have been shamed.
How are we
And
even?
how do you
fit-
give people correct information in a day, you know, put that, in a time where sound bites and not facts
Yeah.
is the loudest message.
I really think, you know, I travel around a lot, and I really think it's the loud, screeching Democrats that are screeching, but the majority of people know that it's not Snyder's fault. It's not, Snyder did not wake up one day and say, go kill those people with lead.
Tell that to Hillary.
Well, I'd like to tell her a couple of things. She's not taking my calls anymore.
Okay.
Like to send her some free water.
Two more things.
Sure, go ahead.
Send her some
I'm
flip
not
water,
sure where I
right?
read this, but the Flint City Council was told 30 years ago to
Yep.
replace the water delivery system.
That's right.
30 years ago. Now, whose fault is that? Secondly, I sent most of you that are on my email list, where the EPA now has found that there are at least 2,000 cities, from Miami to Seattle, from San Francisco to New York, that have contaminated water. And all we're doing with Flint, to me, is we're opening up a can of worms. they're gonna get $55 billion from the federal government to replace it. Well, what about these other 2,000 cities? We would bankrupt the government if we continue to do this
Right,
stuff
right.
for the
Yeah.
fault. That is not the state of Michigan, it's not Snyder's. It goes back to those people, like you said right at the beginning. It is a fault.
Drive through Flint and look at the billboards. Shyster and Howe. You think you've been wronged by your water? Come and see us. We got a class action suit. You know, they're all over. The radio ads. You know, come class action suit.
So
You know,
how have you voted on these Flint bills as far as?
I have voted twice to give them their special appropriation
And when is that?
because it is our obligation to provide safe drinking water. We had to do it.
It's not
Yeah.
a matter whose fault it is now, you
No.
got people that are dying.
Now, I will have a hard time paying for the infrastructure, but what we paid for was to re-hook up to Detroit,
Okay.
paid for the filters, paid for the testing, paid for the medical testing, the water testing, the medical testing.
And really, how bad is it? Because
It's
understand,
not
we have
nearly-
Tom Casperson here, because I've watched the governor's State of the State thing, and Joe Ballinger had brought up how the problem really wasn't as bad as everybody was saying it was, and then found out the next day he got fired from his own publication by Susan Demas, who
Yeah,
bought it.
who's a tremendous liberal. She's a terrible.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just saying, you know, all this.
I have voted
How bad
twice
is
for special appropriations for Flint, and I'm gonna have a hard time voting for any money to replace the infrastructure without them being responsible for it. The majority of the problem in Flint isn't the main lines, it's from the curb to the house, which is the responsibility of the owner. Okay? Now, why that went bad is because, when you really study this, Flint City Council, which are filled with crooks, as I had mentioned, are dealing with the Detroit water system, which is filled with crooks. Okay? And this crook didn't like that crook, and the payoffs weren't going the right way, so the shim and the sham went on, and they said, you know what, we're gonna put our own system in. And that was Flint's decision, to put their own system.
By the way, just to cover something else, since we're talking about Detroit and Flint, I heard a talk show host talk about the people in Detroit made like about $184,000 a year sitting on council. Is that true?
City council?
Yes.
You know, I don't know what the wages are, but they're well over 100, over 100.
Their budget is, each city council member, there's $586,000.
For the
For
whole
their-
office,
for-
yeah.
No, each individual member for their budget.
Right,
And they have 4 staff members in a vehicle.
right. It's terrible,
Yeah.
terrible.
So we spend all that kind of money on that, and they can't fix their own water system, and they charge a city tax on top of it.
And we pay for it,
And they
we're
charge
here in
for water,
Northern
too.
Michigan.
That's correct.
And
That's
you're
so-
working on their problem and not taking care of ours.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Well, not that you're not taking care of ours, your time is being drawn away with their problems versus being able to.
Only
get
the
water.
constitutional stuff.
That's
I'm only dealing with the constitutional stuff. Okay, very good. Yes, sir.
Shelley said that wouldn't even make it known about the Flint Council. What is your, okay, why would that not be dirty politics? You're gonna start yelling dirty politics, you're doing that on purpose to destroy this.
Say it again, sir, I'm missing that.
Well, I'm kinda worried about dirty politics. They're gonna say, well, that's being dirty, telling them about these people that were in prison. They should have they've served their time, they should have a second chance.
When you look at the cities of Michigan and the school districts of Michigan that are most challenged, where are they located?
Detroit, Flint, Grand
In
Rapids.
Harvard and the rest. We have, I'm gonna use Alpena School District, they were financially challenged. They went in there, renegotiated their contract, took a 10% pay cut all down the line, made adjustments, and made it happen, right? Alcona did the same thing. Is everybody happy? Are those teachers happy? No. But it happened, and our kids are still going to school. There's such a mentality in these schools, these cities, that is an eye-opener. Detroit, a 9th grader in Detroit, a 9th grader in Detroit has a 24% chance of graduating. 24% chance of graduating. Detroit Public Schools brag about their seniors having a 68% graduation rate. 68%, and they're bragging about it. Now think about it. What is our graduation rate? She's on the city or school board. Was it 99, 98?
No, it's 90-something.
Yeah.
90% tile in most of our communities
Yeah.
in northeast Michigan.
So
But
when you
tonight-
think a
but
a
tonight-
school kid gets from at least to the 12th grade, I'm gonna go the rest of the way. Detroit, the average household in Detroit is ran by a monarch grandmother. She's in her 50s. She had a child when she was 13, 14, or 15. That child had a child when they were 13, 14, 15. No fathers. There are no fathers. An average African-American boy in Detroit has never seen a male work in his family for 3 generations. How do you change that? How do you change that? We're all Christians. We want to go in there and hold their hand and take them to church and help them out, feed them. They all deserve good, clean water. They all deserve a safe school to go to. It's the adults. It's the adults that are the challenge. I know I didn't want to get too deep on this, Larry, so we can talk further on that. But I can tell you that, again, 16 special appropriations I've had to vote on, only 1 went to Northern Michigan, and that's the challenge.
There was one tonight, just before I left right here, I'm watching TV, I was stunned. Because they just asked, they want people to be able to have paid time to go to the children's special events at school. So if you own a business, they want you to pay them to go to the soccer match.
Sure.
And they wonder why our businesses, our small business is folding like crazy.
Yeah.
Who's gonna pay for that, right? And that's supposed to be their big problem when you have a 24% graduation rate?
In the 9th grade, yeah. All right, well,
Okay.
I bored you enough. If any questions before we
Wait,
move
wait,
forward?
we're moving on to Sue.
I know, but I want to hear your Sue. So,
They're 20 minutes and they're out.
Well, you're hour. Yeah.
The 106th has 4 people running on the Republican side today. The filing deadline's April 19th. We don't know if any other else is going to jump in. We got David and Jackie, and of course Sue is here, and I think you had Jesse here.
Yep, Jesse was here.
Back next month.
Okay, very good. I know all the folks. I know probably David the least, but we have talked a multitude of times. I've known Sue for a multiple years, I don't know, many years. Sue is a very quality person and quality Republican. Sue has helped me in my race up in her district, door knocking, meeting people, putting up signs, going to coffee hours. Sue is a county commissioner in Sheboygan County and a member of good standing and respected in Sheboygan. She's a solid member of the Republican Party in Sheboygan who does a very good job. They are a real solid group, and I say that not taking anything away from Larry, because Larry's doing a great job, but when you become a state rep, you understand that the solid groups are your lifeline, your place of refuge, your place where you can go and feel comfortable, because not all the times it is. And when you have a coffee hour, when these folks come and sit with you and make sure that they keep a level, thanks as Larry has done here with me when those the Democratic women over here like to attack me at the flower garden. Larry has always been there to help me out. But really, Sue is a great person. Her and her husband own a couple of body shops, so we can talk automotive repair. And I think Sue's background and her interest in making sure the Republican platform is met. Sue is a retired nurse and a local business person, so with further ado,